Welcome back, focused learners. Today, we are launching an investigation into what might just be the ultimate unsolved mystery, your very own mind. Have you ever been absolutely 100% certain about something, only to discover that reality tells a completely different story? It kind of feels like a glitch in the matrix, right? Well, in this explainer, we're going to unpack exactly why that happens and explore how reality can sometimes quite literally betray our own memories.
So take a second and really ask yourself, is your memory betraying you? We've all had that super unsettling moment. You'd bet your life savings that a famous movie quote, a well-known logo, or maybe even a major historical event happened exactly the way you remember it. But then you look it up, and it turns out not only are you wrong, but you and millions of other people share the exact same fabricated memory. It's a phenomenon that has absolutely fascinated psychologists and curious minds everywhere.
Okay, let's dive into this. The actual term we use for this bizarre, shared amnesia is the Mandela Effect. It was coined back in 2009 by a paranormal researcher named Fiona Broome. She was at a conference and she realized something incredibly strange. She had this very specific, highly detailed memory of an event that never actually happened. But here's the truly crazy part. She wasn't alone. Thousands of other people shared her exact, incorrect memory.
Let's look at the timeline that started it all. Fiona Broome, along with countless others, vividly remembered South African leader Nelson Mandela dying in prison during the 1980s. People even recalled seeing news coverage of the tragedy on TV. But looking at actual history, Mandela was released from prison in 1990. He went on to become South Africa's president, and he didn't actually pass away until 2013. That stark contrast between a widespread false memory and the actual historical timeline is exactly what birthed the name.
All right, moving on to section 1, the evidence. Let's look at some famous false memories.
Let's start with one of the most famous movie quotes in cinematic history. If I ask you what Darth Vader says to Luke Skywalker in Star Wars: The Empire Strikes Back, what immediately pops into your head? For most of you, I guarantee it's the phrase on the left, "Luke, I am your father." It's on t-shirts, it's referenced everywhere. But look at the reality on the right. The actual line spoken in the film is, "No, I am your father." Despite being completely incorrect, that Luke version is just permanently embedded in our pop culture. Let's keep the evidence coming and see how this builds. Picture the Monopoly man in your head right now. Does he have a monocle? If you said yes, you are actively experiencing the Mandela Effect. The official Monopoly mascot has never, ever worn a monocle. Psychologists suggest our brains just naturally associate wealthy, top-hat-wearing characters with monocles, causing millions of us to spontaneously generate a completely false visual memory. Crazy, right? And this brilliantly illustrates our next example, which is honestly perhaps one of the most fiercely debated ones out there. For decades, adults have insisted they grew up reading the Berenstain Bears, spelled with an E-I-N, yet in reality, the actual spelling has always been the Berenstain Bears with an A-I-N. This is a massive example because adults feel so incredibly confident about that incorrect Stein spelling, sometimes to the point of just outright denial.
Okay, let's try one more. For all the longtime Pokemon fans out there, picture Pikachu. Does his tail have a black tip? If you're nodding your head, brace yourself. Pikachu's tail has always been entirely yellow, with just a little brown section at the base. No black tip whatsoever. Even the most dedicated hardcore fans are absolutely shocked to discover this. It really solidifies the premise that our visual memories are, well, highly fallible.
So, how do we actually explain this? Let's get into section 2, the investigation. Science versus sci-fi.
To solve this mystery, we first need to understand how the brain actually works. We rely heavily on something called reconstructive memory. Most people think human memory functions like a video camera playback, right? You just hit play and watch an event back with perfect accuracy. But it doesn't work like that at all. Memory is reconstructive. Every single time you recall an event, your brain actually has to rebuild that memory from scattered fragments. And over long periods of time, this rebuilding process just naturally introduces errors. Those tiny reconstructive errors lead us straight to the concept of false memories. These are vivid, crystal clear memories of events that never actually occurred. Researchers have extensively demonstrated that if you're exposed to misinformation and it gets repeated often enough, your brain will eventually just accept it as the absolute truth. You aren't lying. Your brain has quite literally fabricated a scenario so vivid that it just feels undeniably real. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how it explains the Berenstain Bears mystery through a scientific lens known as pattern recognition.
You see, human brains are perfectly designed to recognize patterns to help us fill in missing information faster. Because surnames ending in Stein are extremely common, while Stain is much less familiar, our brains effectively autocorrect the information. We expect a certain pattern, and our brain just quietly overrides reality to make it fit.
But wait, why does everyone share the exact same error? That is where social reinforcement comes in. The internet acts as a massive echo chamber, dramatically amplifying these tiny reconstructive errors. When thousands of people go online and share the exact same mistaken memory, it strongly reinforces the belief that the memory is correct. The validation is so strong, in fact, that it actually convinces people that reality itself has somehow shifted, rather than simply accepting that their brains just made a mistake.
Of course, not everyone buys the psychological explanation. Let's look at Section 3, the alternate suspects, focusing on sci-fi theories. The most popular alternate theories lean pretty heavily into science fiction. Many theorists suggest that the Mandela Effect is actually evidence of parallel universes colliding, or maybe that we're constantly jumping between alternate timelines. According to these ideas, reality itself is changing and just leaving behind these little traces in human memory. Now, while these theories offer a very fun, mysterious explanation that definitely captures the imagination, it's really important to note that there is currently zero scientific evidence supporting them. This brings us to our final takeaway in Section 4, the verdict, and what the Mandela Effect actually teaches us. So, the crucial point is this: confidence does not guarantee accuracy. The Mandela Effect reveals a pretty profound truth about the human mind. Even our strongest, most fiercely guarded memories can be deeply, fundamentally flawed. We inherently trust our recollections because they feel incredibly real to us. But as we've seen today, our feelings are simply not reliable indicators of the truth. So, what are our ultimate takeaways from our explainer today? The Mandela Effect sits perfectly at the fascinating crossroads of psychology and mystery. It reminds us that human memory is surprisingly imperfect. And because of that, we must always question our assumptions. Take a moment to verify information before declaring it as an absolute fact. And above all, remain entirely open to the possibility of being wrong. Embracing the imperfection of our own minds really is the first step to truly learning. We've looked at Star Wars, board games, cartoons, and history, but the implications stretch far, far beyond pop culture. The next time you're absolutely certain about a memory, whether it's an argument with a friend, a tiny detail from your childhood, or a fact you swear you read somewhere, just take a second to double-check it. It leaves us with one final, kind of unsettling question to ponder. What else are you misremembering? Thank you for exploring the amazing quirks of the human brain with me today, and keep questioning your world.